It's 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Had to think about it though. It is time for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woo! Yeah, baby, let's get this show started. And thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. Let us see if there's anybody in that chat room. And there they are. They're showing up now. So I'm going to give them a minute to show up. And while they're showing up, excuse me, I just ate a chocolate-covered almond. It's sticking in my throat. Anyway, I'll say hello to all you guys in a moment, but I want to let you know that I learned something very, very valuable last night playing around with my new Logic Pro that came on Logic on my new MacBook Pro, and it doesn't come free. I had to pay $200 to get it preloaded on there. And the thing that I learned last night was worth every bit of the $200. And that was without even learning the whole program. So let me say hello to you guys in the chat room, and then we'll get talking about it. Hello, Jesse J. Peck, Martin Gravel, John Pearson, Ilraso Emil, Peter Rahill, Fourth Like, everybody else, jump in now, give us a like. Let's see, Darren Moss, hello, Bob Gunnerfeld, Andre Stepanian, Alex Dillon, Remy Bear, right, I keep saying Rennie Bear, Pete Mason, Brad Gray, Darren Fletcher, Lucian Lewis, what am I on? Coffee. Scott Hansen, hello. Dan Weber, Randall House, let's see, anybody? Steve Thompson, Ewart Williams, Mark Reel, Kip Johnson, Pete Mason. Yay, the gang is all here. Aaron Northern, welcome back. It's pronounced Riney. Oh, okay, I will practice that. Thanks for letting me know, Riney. Ken Bauer, hello. Giovanni Lanza. I lost yesterday's show. I have to watch it tomorrow. Okay, I got to think about that. It's too many, like the future and the past. Hello, spiritual. Let me grab a swig of my iced coffee. I'll try not to slurp. Is gulping okay? To the gentleman, I can't even remember who it was that complained about me slurping. I don't think it was any of you regular dudes or dudettes. Speaking of dudettes, where are the ladies today? Where's Nancy Khalil? Don't see her in there. Where's Marion? The ladies are absentee. I hope they got a hall pass. Gulping is illegal in New York. Half an hour till I take it out. Take what out, Marion? Hello. I'm here. There she is. Okay. So, as you might have expected, last night, I guess it was about 11 o'clock, my wife said, we've been watching a TV series on Netflix called The Umbrella Academy. Frankly, we can't turn it off. We've been doing 2 episodes a night. It's hard to turn off, but it's strange. It's kind of like, oh man, what was that show? Twin Peaks and something else. I don't know. It's strange, but there's something really magnetic about it that just keeps you involved. It's unlike anything really that's out there now. The Royal Tenenbaums. Remember the movie The Royal Tenenbaums and Twin Peaks? If you like melded kind of the storylines and writing style and to some extent the character development, all that stuff into something, this could be it. It's definitely in that ballpark. Twin Peaks was weird. I couldn't get into it. So, no spiritual, not a logic tutorial coming because I actually need to watch one versus teaching one. Hello, Carrie Harchin. Hope I pronounced that right. Glad to have you back. So, how can I explain? So anyway, my wife said, let's go to bed. I said, okay. So she went upstairs and I was loading up the coffee machine. We have one of those old grind and brews that you put the beans in at night and set the timer. In the morning, you hear bzzz, it automatically grinds it, makes you a freshly ground pot of coffee, which is delicious. Hello, Chuck Sadowski. And after I finished it, I walked over. The new computer was sitting on the island in the kitchen, and I thought, well, I'll just open it up for a minute. Big mistake. 2 o'clock in the morning, I was still sitting in the kitchen playing with Logic. And what I did was I opened up the demo, which is the Beck song Colors, I believe. To be honest, I've never been a huge fan of Beck. I didn't dislike him, but, I never heard a Beck song that I turned off, but never bought the record, so to speak. So they've got a full-blown, it's called a demo, but it's the full-blown production of that Beck song. And what I wanted to do mostly was familiarize myself with compressors, reverbs, delays, and EQs. Excuse me. So, Billie Eilish demo, that'd be cool. So anyway, I started playing around with it. And what I realized by listening to all the different parts and looking at how they're laid out, it was like taking a tutorial on how to make productions sound contemporary. It's not so much about the gear. We all know that. It's about the ear. It's about the way the parts are assembled. It's a jigsaw puzzle of parts. But you can learn so much by just going track by track. Just, pull up the drum tracks. I still don't even know the terminology, so I'm going to be using some of my old, SSL terminology, my, 1970s and 80s studio terminology. But what you see on a fader is like drum beats or something, whatever it's called. But it's actually the full drum kit. In SSL lingo, we would say that they were subgrouped to a fader. In Pro Tools lingo, I guess you would say that they're all bussed to fader 17. And you bring fader 17 up, and that's a stereo fader, and it's got all the drums as they're mixed on their separate tracks, but hidden, sent to that one fader, so you can bring the drums up or down. You would do the same thing with an SSL or a Neve or an MCI, any of those older consoles. Usually they had separate faders called subgroups, and you would assign, using like a little wheel thing or a little something, some sort of knob or switch or something, and you would assign those all to sub 1, sub 2, sub 3, sub 4. That way you could control groups of instruments without reaching over and grabbing 5 or 6 faders that were in that group and trying to bring them all up equally at the same time, which frankly ain't that hard, but okay, let's put everything in a subgroup. So, hello, Dave Merkel. So I did that. I went either the drums as a group and listened to the drums all the way through. And as I was doing it, by the way, I think that it was John Pearson that said something about that he loves the classic console EQ. I forget what it's called. The vintage console EQ, which is basically a Neve 1073, I believe. Sounds awesome. I could not stop drooling on the laptop when I was listening to that thing. And I did exactly what I tell you guys to always do, which was I would just isolate the snare drum and sit there and just, suck out a bunch of low mids or add a bunch of high mids, or add a bunch of bottom or use a high pass filter. And, oh, that was Andre. Okay, well, thank you for the tip. I love that equalizer. And I love the fact that you can pull up, the graphic EQs, like I don't even know what you call them, but it's like the graphic display of an EQ, and just put your pointer anywhere on that line and drag it and go up or go down and do all this stuff. what a great way to learn about what EQ does on different instruments. I sent a text to Tom from our staff this morning. He's all excited that I got Logic. I don't know why. I'm happy that he's excited, but I think he's more excited that I got it than I am. And it's so incredibly educational to do that track by track thing, and just basically you're trying to break it, make it sound awful, make it sound wonderful, you know, turn it up to 50, make it distort, do all that stuff, press every button, turn on every switch you can on each piece of that outboard, and just listen to what it does. You're going to have to go back and do it again and again and again, and eventually, yes, Tom uses Logic, I believe. You're going to have to go back and do it again and again and again, so that you develop the kind of location memory and the muscle memory as to where things are. I obviously hope to do that over time. What I really need to do now before I develop bad habits is start taking tutorials. It's just with the road rally coming up. Once again, did I do any road rally work last night? Hell no. So I really can't get into Logic too much before the rally, and it's going to be hard to leave it alone. But, you know, I got into bed about 2 o'clock and fell asleep about 2:30 and was up before the coffee machine went bzzz at 7. So I'm very excited about it, and I realized I've got a tremendous advantage over many people who would be getting their first workstation or DAW. I hate calling them DAWs. I don't know why. DAW. The advantage that I have is I already understand EQ. I understand delays. I understand reverb. I understand compression. So I've got that part of my brain is already wired to know before I turn a knob on something. I pretty much know what it's going to sound like. The exciting thing for me was that by doing it, it confirmed that those plugins really are that good and they do work. And gee, you know, other than the fact that I like touching outboard gear, there's just something about having outboard gear and turning those knobs not that unsatisfying to do it with plugins. And I'm just really, really impressed with how good they sound. I think I'm going to have to hit up Shirelli and get a suite of his stuff and start playing around with it because I've heard so many good things about it. But man, oh man, do you guys know, I'm sure there must be websites where you can go buy and download sessions from famous songs that we all know, right? Mark Real agrees. I've always disliked the word "duh." Duh. Wow, Fet's in the room. Hello, Fet. I am hooked, but I was hooked before. You know, this is one thing I quickly realized was I want to buy a 36-inch TV and use that as my monitor so that I can have, you know, the fader stuff there or in front of me and then the track stuff there. Because let's face it, this is really what it is it's a tape machine, a mixer, and an outboard rack. It does everything a control room does. The other thing I said to Tom this morning was the last room that I worked in extensively, I think for 5.5 years in New York, had, I want to say, a 56 input SSL G series, couple of LA2s, couple of 1176s, 4 Pultecs, a mic closet you would die for. I mean, just, you know, 87s, 47s, of course, 57s, 421s, 441s, 414s, and multiples on all of those. Couple of RCA 77s, a couple of RCA 44s, you know, pretty much the standard make you drool microphones. Great sounding big monitors, NS10s and Oratones, a Studer analog multi-track, a Sony 24-track digital multi-track on half-inch tape. Those are a little bit rare, but they're really cheap now. Um, TV monitors are not that great. Better if you get a high-end monitor. Oh my God, I just spent like $3,800 on a laptop. I don't know that I want to go drop a fortune on a monitor. Really, a 4K TV wouldn't work that well. Um, anyway, which interface am I going for? I'm not sure yet. Um, and frankly, I could use the Rodecaster. It's supposed to have really good sounding pre's in there and make a great interface, although it's certainly bigger than most of the interfaces. Um, I already own a couple of interfaces that people have sent me. I've got a little baby like traveling interface from that Shure sent me. That if I were, on an airplane or in a hotel room, I would bring that thing. It's tiny. It's whoa, what the hell just happened? Am I crazy or did the light just change when I did that? Oh well. Um, the interface from Shure is about the size. Those are my wireless headphones in there from Sony, but it's about that big. The thing weighs about a pound. It's built like a truck. Did that lighting change or is it me? Um, oh, it changed. Okay, I'm gonna go look at the light. I'll be right back. That's so weird. Wow. That's so weird. The little computer that controls the light just totally freaked out. It actually went to 118%, even though it normally only goes up to 100%. And the color temperature went from 5800 down to 4100, all by itself for no reason. Great. Now I get to spend 120 bucks and buy another one of those. Um, Okay, did change, but it looks fine. I'm going to use Black Lion Audio Mods. Uh, how many audio engineers does it take to change a light bulb? Apparently, just one here. Um, what will I get? I will probably get a Focusrite or an Apollo. I'm not sure. Excuse me, because I don't know. I just don't have enough time. I don't want to sacrifice the quality of what Taxi does um, in order to appease my own desire to make records again. Um, I don't know. You know. Well, let's see what the sponsors pony up for the road rally gear wise this year. If there's any stuff you see advertised that doesn't get given away because we forgot, I can only lay claim to one microphone that I got that way. uh, wow, JP sent his Apollo back. The learning curve for me was too much. Somebody loves the Apollo. Is it Andre loves his? Yeah, Andre. That's right. And the Apollo comes with a bunch of good stuff as well, right? Um, yeah, the Focusrite Scarlets, I've never heard anything but great stuff about those. Apparently, Fed is on a break right now because I'm surprised he's not chiming in. But he did say the other day when we had Fed join us for the show that he was a fan of, I forget which one of the Focusrites, but like 212 maybe? I don't know. The Scarlets just often have faults. A lot of my Discord members have weird issues like they're having to restart every 45 minutes. Wow. Damn, my son-in-law used to work for Universal Audio for about a year. I should have hit him up to get me a friends and family price on one. Anyway, so did anybody, I might have missed it in the chat, but did anybody identify a website where you can go download sessions from hit records that we all know? Because, man, I couldn't stop thinking about all of our members that are older, from, older generations, and they're like having a hard time understanding, well, what makes something sound modern and contemporary? Obviously, a good portion of that is the writing. Melodies are different, where vocal phrases start and stop are different, vocal delivery styles are different. All those things are different, but certainly the production and the engineering are different. Here's something I didn't even know Logic had in it, is Beck has a lot of sound effect tracks, just little dopey things that, frankly, listening to the full mix in its original state, I had to look really hard to hear them, but they're in there. I don't know that they were necessary to be in there. I don't know that it made, a big difference or not. I see Andre making a suggestion, Darren making a suggestion, pulling apart recordings of hit songs. Shirelli normally does that. He'll play multi-tracks of old hits in his thing. The problem is doing it online. Gonna have the same problem I had the day that I played all that Neil Young stuff, which is they're gonna say silence it or we're taking it down, and they did. Where do I get my hands on the Billie Eilish demo? No, the effects weren't Apple loops. They were more like, little backward cymbals, things like that. Oh, it's in the new updated Logic? You mean there are more demos? The only one that I saw was the Beck one, and I just got the most updated version of Logic. I mean, it's like brand new. Oh, maybe I just missed it somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, I am just loving this experience so far. Literally, I've like scratched the surface. I'm still a one percenter. Andre, what is alchemy? Is that something in Logic? I thought I chose demos. Anyway, all right. Well, guess what I'll be doing right after the show is over? Oh, it's a synth in Logic. Got it. Okay. Hello, Richard Carr. Yeah, friend of mine. What is going on up there? Is that all fires up in the Monterey Bay area? A friend of mine just flew back this morning from San Francisco and sent a picture looking out the plane window on the tarmac. And I mean, the sky is just orange. I mean, we're talking like pumpkin orange. Wow. Let's do a quarantini where we watch ML play around with Logic. That's going to be a few months from now. Kip Johnson says still trying to get Logic to run on Windows with VirtualBox, but I've got to say now I'm on, I don't know, maybe my fifth or sixth MacBook Pro, And I've never used the virtual PC in it, ever. Hello, Nancy Kalel. The sky in Azusa is yellow. Yeah, it's just kind of putrid looking here. Although it doesn't smell smoky today. It did get really windy this morning, which always scares the crap out of anybody that lives in a fire zone knows that when it's like over 90 degrees and it gets windy, ouch. Simon Burnham wants to know, hey Simon, are you related to Hugo Burnham, the artist manager? What speakers am I going to have? I've got NS10s at the office. Maybe I'll bring those home. I don't know. I had a pair of JBL 4311s that the Eagles engineer producer gave me back in the 70s. They were the ones he used on the One of These Nights album, and he never used the same set of monitors on every project. He started out with a brand new pair of JBL 4311s. He wouldn't even go to the trouble of replacing, the drivers in them. And so I had those, and then I moved to New York from Florida many years later. Took them with me. I had a little studio apartment on the Upper West Side after my first marriage ended in disaster. And I had those as my home speakers, JBL 4311s. They're 12-inch three-ways. I mean, frankly, they weren't the greatest sounding speakers, but they were kind of the standard of the day, and that's what I got used to. So I had them in my little apartment, which really pissed off my neighbors. I would play like Machine Head by Deep Purple, with the monitors up to 11. Anyway, they got infested with these little 3/4-inch sized cockroaches. And I even took the drivers out and sprayed the inside of the cabinets with Raid. And then waited a week or so. Of course, all the cockroaches, they just came streaming out like an army of cockroaches. It was gross. But that's what you get when you live in New York City. It wasn't like I lived in some crap building either. It was a pre-war building, but it wasn't a dump, It wasn't like a crack house or anything. And anyway, at some point I thought, okay, the cockroaches are all gone, and I put the drivers back in, and I wired them up, and I turned them up to 11, and sure enough, out came more cockroaches. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I kept that apartment for several years because I would go back every other weekend to see my daughters on the East Coast then. And then when I finally gave up that apartment, I just told my landlord, you know what, just take any of my stuff, the bed, the TV, those speakers, and just sell them or throw them away. So somewhere in the world is somebody with a cool pair of JBL 4311s with a bit of history attached to them and free cockroaches. Akira Canyon, how are you, buddy? By the way, I did have it on my list of to-dos this morning. First thing in the morning, actually, was to check out Discord, but I didn't get to do it. Partially because I was up late working with Logic last night, and the bigger reason was chasing down somebody who thought they had a copyright infringement on something that was forwarded forever ago, blah, blah, blah. So I had to do the taxi due diligence routine on that to make sure that there wasn't actually any copyright infringement. Andre wants to know from you how or why, when to decide to put your monitor upright or on its side. Okay, I've got an answer for that. Going to require a swig of iced coffee first. Okay. First of all, they should be at ear level. You don't want them below ear level. You don't want them above ear level. You want them at ear level. That's why, near field monitors often sit on the meter bridge of a console. And when you think about it, the bass and the kick drum are invariably right down the middle, dead center, right? As would be the snare in most cases, vocals usually. Those are the types of things that are dead center on a mix. And so if you've got the two woofers outside, not as good as having them in the middle where it seems to focus, even though bass energy, the the waves coming off a bass note. I want to say like a low E bass wave. I could be wrong about this. It's been a long time since I studied this stuff. I mean, like 40 years ago. But I want to say a low E is 36 feet for the wave to fully develop or something like that in a room. Um, so I was always taught, and I've tried it all different ways, and it does sound better to me to have them. Obviously, there's the triangle. There's actual math that you can find easily online that will tell you the distance apart they should be according to how far back you are. So there's that math. And just have it so that the speakers are towed in. That's hard to do on camera. Anyway, you get the idea. The speakers should be towed in a bit, not to the point of being ridiculous like their headphones. For my personal taste and what I was taught, and it added up, is put the woofs in the middle, put the speakers on their sides. That way you get the, if they've got a mid-range and a tweeter or just a tweeter, they're on the outside, which makes it better for imaging. Obviously, high frequency waveforms are much shorter and I believe much more direct. So there you go. Now, if you stand the speakers up so that the woofers on the bottom and the mid-range and the tweeters are on the top, depending on the size of the speaker, you could have the woofers hitting you in the face, which doesn't really matter because, like I said, the bass waveforms are more, they're like a big amorphous balloon of sound coming out, whereas the high frequency stuff is much more directional. So in theory, you could have the high frequency stuff shooting over your head. Now, when you want to prove this to yourself, which I have actually done both with JBL 4311s, some tannoys that were about yay big, they're like a mid-sized tannoy cabinet. Probably had like a 10-inch three-way or something that tannoy once gave me. I've done 4311s so with NS10s. I've done it with tannoys, and I think I did it once with Genelecs. Stand them up on a meter bridge or at ear level, face level, and then go like this. Yeah, just like that. And you will hear such a dramatic change just by moving your head up, like 6 to 10 inches. So that's when I convinced myself that I will always work with my near field monitors, roughly 4 feet out from me, towed in a little bit, and on their sides with the tweets on the outside. I have the tannoys from 1991. I had some. Remember the tannoys that had the double 15 woofers in them? The big control room monitors. So when I was in New York and had that awesome room with the SSL in it, I had a budget of about $1 million a year to spend on equipment. Not cash, but I if I had to, as the manager of that large facility, I could lease up to $1 million worth of equipment in a given year. So I was relatively popular with the equipment manufacturers. We were a big deal audio post house. We did, some record work, but very little, some big jingles, but mostly mixing to picture. And even though, you've probably never heard of Howard Schwartz Recording or HSR, it was commonly known. It was probably the single most profitable studio anywhere in the United States, and just did a ton of work and got ridiculously high prices for, I think when I arrived there, we had 4 rooms, and when I left 5.5 years later, we had 6 or 7 rooms. Eventually they had, I think, almost 11 rooms in that place. Everything from like 2 SSL, full-on big, nice SSL rooms, couple of like mid-sized rooms that were mostly for voiceover mixing to picture that had Sony, like 36 input Sony consoles, and then a couple more of those rooms that were even nicer, more modern, and then they started adding like smaller production rooms for editing and stuff. Anywhere, why was I talking about that? Oh, so manufacturers, I was very popular when I would go to the AES show, let's say, and the manufacturers would send me stuff, and I would write articles every now and then for like, I don't know, Recording Engineer Producer magazine, and got interviewed by Pro Sound News, that sort of stuff. So they liked to put their gear in my hands, and sometimes I would call them up, say, okay, thanks, I'm done, and come and get it, and they would never come and get it. So obviously I didn't get to take the stuff home and keep it personally, with very rare exceptions. But one of the things that they gave me was Tannoy. When my control room in New York got rebuilt, Tannoy gave us these huge monitors. I want to say they were dual 15 woofs in each side. They sounded amazing. They got really loud. They actually sounded like a Neve console. I do love the way Tannoy sound. If they've got a fault, it's that they sound too good. NS10s seem to work for a lot of people because they don't sound too good. They sound very average and kind of flat. But I can't remember the brand of amplifier I had going to these bad boys, but I want to say, I think I had a Crest amplifier. I think I had 500 watts a side going to them, maybe 1,000, just a lot of power going to these things. Anyway, I was working with a band. It might have been that Mike Thorne project, doing that record with the group The Reds or something. And I cranked the monitors up, at the end of a session, just turned them way up. The whole front panel came out of one side. The whole piece of wood that had the big monitors, the big woofers, all the stuff in there. It made this cracking sound. For a while, we all kept kind of looking around the room. We heard this like buzzing, and then it sounded like cracking. And all of a sudden, it just went foop, and the front of the monitor just dropped out. It was probably like 200 pounds worth of speakers and wood just dropped out and landed in that area, like between the control room glass and the couch in front of the console. Thank God nobody was down there. I mean, that would have killed somebody. So at that point, I think Tannoy gave me like 10-inch three-ways. When they came to reclaim the damaged goods, they gave me some 10-inch three-ways, and I really, really liked those. But again, they just sounded so sexy. They were like bright and silky on the top end and bouncy and firm on the bottom end. I know it sounds dirty, right? But they just sounded great. They sounded like a classic Neve console, and they were speakers. I'm getting caught up in the chat here. That's right. Mixing engineer is a dangerous job. 10-inch three-ways are very sexy. Scott, can always count on you. Oh, Randall House says, thanks for suggesting Stephen Pressfield books. They're easy reading and very motivational for what I'm trying, where I'm at in my creative journey. You're welcome. I'm so excited that I get to interview him for the rally. Remember, I don't even know if they're still made or not. Do you remember Crest amplifiers? They were, JBL amps were around for a long time. I'm not talking like guitar amps. I'm talking about, monitor amps. Crown. I used to have some beefy Crowns. One of the rooms I worked in, we had Macintosh tube amplifiers, and we were bi-amped some Uri 813 control room monitors, which were kind of good monitors back in the late 70s through mid 80s. Anyway, I think after the guy who owned my Mac tube amps, reclaim them. He went like, I think he joined the military or something and was gone for like 4 years. Said, here you go, take good care of my babies, replace the tubes if they die. Okay. They sounded too good. They really did make everything sound pretty. So when those went bye-bye, Crest was a relatively new brand and they wanted me to fall in love with their product. So they gave me some Crest amps to bi-amp my big monitors with. And I actually blew one of them up. I mean, literally, it was probably a capacitor. I don't remember now. But I remember sitting in the engineer's chair and going, something smells like burning fuel or plastic or something. And all of a sudden, my assistant goes, look, look. And I remember the amps were down underneath the console. Not a good place to put an amp if it's going to catch fire and blow up. And they were sitting, like a foot in front of my feet, maybe 2 feet in front of my feet, underneath the console. And one of them literally caught on fire and they just went poof, made this big popping sound and dented the metal casing. It had perforated metal casing in the top to create some ventilation. It literally blew that up. Oh man. Yeah, Crown DC 300s were the shiz from way back when. That's right. Ooh, Macintosh preamp, sweet. I had a friend, one of my fellow engineers at Criteria, that used to look at the obituaries for Miami Beach, because at the time Miami Beach was mostly elderly Jewish people from New York that were either snowbirds that would come down for the winter or move to Miami Beach, full on for their retirements. And I don't know, I guess it's not racist, right? But apparently a lot of Jewish people like to buy high-end stereos. I don't know how else to say that politically correctly, but considering I'm Jewish, I can't really get busted for it. It's not denigrating anybody, just pointing out something which was an observation at the time. So my friend Steve actually would peruse the obituaries looking for, somebody that had a Jewish-sounding last name. And he would wait a month or so. He would cut the obituary out. He would wait a reasonable amount of time. And then he would track down the phone number and call the home and get the widow on the phone and say, hello, Mrs. Steinberg. My name is Steve, and I'm a collector of antique audio gear. I wonder, is it possible, could you look, do you have a stereo at home? Why, yes, I do. And can you look on that and can you tell me, do any of the amplifiers have a big M on them and say Macintosh? What's an amplifier? Well, it's the biggest thing, it's not the turntable and it's not the thing with the radio dial on it. It's the thing that'll be sitting next to those things and it'll be big. And when you turn it on, it gets hot. And he would find Macintosh amps and pay these widows next to nothing. He would tell them, yeah, they're antiques, I just like the way they look and I like the fact they still have tubes. Nowadays, everything is solid state, much better. But I can take that off your hands, for like $100. This guy had in his basement, in his house, he had electrostatic speakers. I can't remember the brand name, but they were like 3 feet wide and about 6 or 7 feet tall. They're giant electrostatic speakers. And he had like 3 Macs on each one of them powering. And they didn't have like a woofer and, a mid-range driver and a tweeter. They were it was basically a big sheet of like electrostatically charged Mylar with a grid of very fine wires on either side of it or something like that. Scott Hansen, Jewish. That's funny. My wife's maiden name was Hansen, and she's a member of the tribe as well. Anyway, Heel Air speakers. No, his weren't Heels, or Hiles, but anyway. So yeah, his home stereo sounded better than any of our rooms at Criteria. Just we would go there sometimes like at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night after work, four or five of us that were all engineers, and just sit in his basement. Um, and, do what 20 somethings did back in the day and just listen to incredible records on those speakers. Um, Jan Wilage, have to leave for a Zoom meeting. What could possibly be better than this? Shame on you, Jan. Uh, wow. Scott Hansen, you related to Matt Nathanson? Um, anyway. All right, well, there you go. More gear stories. But I'm so just enamored with the idea of listening to demos on Logic and literally listening to every track all the way through several times. And as you're playing with Outboard, as you're listening to the parts, you'll start to go, oh, look at that. Like, for instance, there's a funky guitar part. They're like, excuse me, maybe four or five different guitars on the Beck track. And I'm listening to it going, wow, there's a funk guitar part that comes in like three times, four times maybe in the whole song. It's not in all that often or for all that long, but when it comes in, it's like, I understand why that's there. I wouldn't have thought of that because my brain is wired to old school production. So I'm rewiring my brain by listening to the way the kids do it nowadays. And it's just awesome. It's like the old days hanging out in the control rooms at Criteria with people that were 3 to 5 years ahead of me, on the ladder of engineering success, I guess. And listening to what they did track by track. And that's how I learned a lot. Of course, I had them in the room with me go, why did you do that? And I don't think I could call Beck and ask him that, but maybe I should. Um, no, Kira, I'm not an expert on Logic. I just got it Tuesday, which was what, yesterday? Today's Wednesday, right? I think. Just got it yesterday. Just got my new laptop yesterday because this one's having issues, which I can't have during the road rally, and it's over 5 years old. So I was able to justify spending more money than I wanted to on a new laptop, and I had Logic installed at the factory. Um, So yeah, I played with it a little bit yesterday as soon as the computer came, and then played with it last night. And I was listening to the Beck demo and going track by track, mostly to play with plugins, and that's when I realized I was learning a lot about production. Um, That's right. Ronnie says keeping up on modern ideas and music is mandatory to compete in the market. Absolutely. It's not like back in the day where the bass player basically played the whole same thing through the whole song. You had an intro part, a verse part, a chorus part, and a bridge part. Nowadays, you've got three basses in a song. And you've got like, standard bass sound that plays the verses, and maybe a distorted bass that plays on the chorus, and then maybe a completely weird sounding bass combined with a bass synth that plays on the bridge section. Just so much to learn. That's right. By Sunday, I should be an expert for Monday's show. Yeah, I got to figure out what the hell I'm going to do for Monday's Taxi TV. What's a recommended resource for learning how to create music cues in Logic Pro. Well, it's kind of two different topics. Do you want to learn about how to create music cues, or do you want to learn how to run Logic? Oh, by the way, that show that I mentioned earlier in the episode today, the Umbrella Academy, incredibly good music in that show. Their music budget must be insanely high because they've got some like big artists in there, and stuff that goes back decades to like there's a Nina Simone track that wasn't frankly even identifiable as Nina Simone, and then there could be something else by I don't know the Who or whomever. Um, anyway, oh, and I was looking up the music supervisor. We're still watching the episodes from season one, which I believe was done in 2019. But I noticed that the music supervisor for season two, for I believe 8 of the episodes, um, was somebody whose name escapes me at the moment, but a very nice lady who I would say is probably in her mid 30s to early 40s and a mom. I'm kind of a typical suburban housewife type of person who loves music. And she was like an assistant music supervisor, music coordinator that was just on the verge of becoming a full on music supervisor. And then, whichever network or whomever she was working for laid a bunch of people off. This was years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago. And she was out of work and she was referred to us for a screening position. She turned out to be a great screener. Um, Oops, there's the home phone ringing. Let's see. I have no idea who that is. Um, and then she got a job working on the show Atlanta, which is, I've never watched it, but it's a music based show, all urban music. And to look at this woman, you would never know in a million years that she was an expert on urban music. But I believe she's won all kinds of awards, had some big, like maybe an Emmy nomination for music for her work on Atlanta. Jen Malone, thank you. And she did 8 episodes of the Umbrella Academy, so I can't wait to hear her work. Um, who benefits the most? Big artists getting their stuff on the big stage and market of TV, or TV getting music from big artists? Um, Peter, that's a really hard question to answer, um, because you could make the argument that the show benefits by having great music, so people mention it. It's remarkable. One person remarks to one other friend or remarks to many, as I'm doing right here, about the quality of the music in a show, and that might influence you to watch the show, right? On the other hand, the big artists, they might get 50K or 100K or maybe even $250,000 for a really well-known song that's synced in a big show. I mean, I've heard numbers that go even higher for that, certainly for big feature films. So the artist gets exposure and they get paid for it, but the audience build on a show that's well-known to have great music. That's certainly a component of it. So I think everybody benefits. I don't know that one is that much better than the other. Aaron Norton says the main thing with Logic is always make sure you check for compatibility with Logic in your Mac operating system before you update either one. Good advice. Wonder how many taxi members are authentic British? 10? No, I would say a lot more. Taxi's membership is probably 80% based in the United States, 20% outside of the US, with Canada, England, and Australia being the other countries because English is the first language there. Um, And I would say, obviously, Ireland, anywhere in the UK, Ireland is also, we've got a lot of taxi members there. So, I would say dozens, if not a couple or a few hundred, maybe more. The NFL dropped Hank Williams Jr. from their lead in. Oh, God. I was watching CNN this morning. They were saying that the Oscars are now making, in order to get nominated for an Oscar, that your film has to have a certain number of people of color, people that are from the LGBTQ. I can never get that right. You know what I'm saying? The LGBTQ community. Did I say that right? Yeah, that they're now mandating that these standards have to be met, even down to the marketing department, that you have to have quotas of people that are disabled. Anyway, so now, of course, Hollywood is up in arms about this because apparently none of the movies that were nominated last year would meet those criteria. So now, are we judging the films based on the quality of the film or based on the quantity of certain types of ethnicities or people that are used to make the movies or star in the movies or market the movies? I don't know. LGBT plus Q. There you go. Minorities, thank you. So, yeah, it was... people were in shock over that. I don't know what to think about it because I don't have all the facts yet. I don't know enough. I just happened to be walking through the bedroom, the TV was on, and I kind of stopped halfway through them talking about it this morning. But it does seem a little odd that they're no longer just judging art for the quality of the art, but by the people, the skin color, the sexual preference of the people who make the art. Oh, well, I did see a quote. Kirstie Alley apparently said that would be like, she had tweeted out something about that would be like saying Picasso doesn't count because he's not gay or something. I don't know. Anyway, don't quote me on that one because, like I said, I was literally like walking in and out of the bedroom. Right, whatever happened to talent? What version of Logic do I have? I don't know because the computer is upstairs. The most current one. The computer literally was assembled like 2 weeks ago. They actually shipped it from China, which I didn't. I mean, I'm not surprised that Apple's computers are built in China. But I think every other... Oh, you know what? I've always purchased refurbs before. This one's not a refurb. And probably because they had to do the factory install of Logic. So it came directly from China, but it went from like China to Taiwan to Alaska to Lexington, Kentucky to Ohio to somewhere else, to California. It took it about 9 days, 10 days to get here, and I kept tracking it on the UPS thing. And it's amazing, man. That computer is a world traveler by the time it got to me. Built in China, US priced. Yeah. Mark Real, affirmative action has its glitches. It certainly does. Yeah, I'm got to read up on that tonight to find out more about it because to me that sounds crazy. It's like, really, and that's how we're going to judge records at the Grammys? Why can't we just? I'm sorry, your band doesn't have enough people of color in it. What? Would they say the reverse if it were an all African American rap group? I'm sorry, you need a white guy as your singer? I don't know. The whole thing to me is just like, judge it on the merits of the art. But, oh well, like I said, I don't know enough yet to form a fully formed opinion. or a well-informed opinion, but it sounds crazy on its face. Um, I do have Catalina as the OS on the new computer. That much I know. You know, Robert Orzechowski says ageism sucks big time in the music industry. It used to be more of a thing. I literally used to make the joke, and it wasn't that much of a joke, that labels were looking for bands while they were still in utero to sign them. And age mattered because more young people bought music than older people. That was a fact, an actual statistic. Older people may love music and have listened to a lot of music. And back in our day, when we were 20 something and 30 something, we bought a lot of CDs. But apparently, the older you get, it's not that you consume less music, it's that you buy less music. So they were after the youth market. But the other reason, which somebody didn't explain to me until probably 2 or 3 years into Taxi, somebody made me aware that one of the reasons they signed young acts was because they wanted the length of the career. If you sign somebody who's 44 years old, usually back in the day, it would take it was a whole different schema than it is now. But they would sign an act, they would develop the act, they would put out the first record. Usually it was like from the time they signed the act till the first record came out was a year to 2 years, typically about a year and a half. Then they have to go on the road and endure the rigors of the road, usually not in a private jet, for the first few years. You try to get the first record off the ground, at least a toehold, marketing-wise, and then you go through this whole developmental cycle. Well, if the act is already middle-aged, by the time you go through that with a record or two, it's like, who the hell wants to tour at 55 years old? At some point, it gets tiring, unless, of course, you're in the Eagles. But they've got a whole entourage. Everybody in the band's got a private chef and that whole deal. They bring their families, all that stuff. But yeah, they want the career longevity. Nowadays, the way music is consumed, the way it's sold, I don't think people, when they listen to a playlist on Spotify, I don't think they really care about how old the person is that they're listening to, which is great. It's about the music. It's not about the color of their skin. It's not about their age. It's not about their sexual preferences. It's just about the music. Do I like it or do I not like it? So I think we're going through a bit of a renaissance. Personally, right now, I've noted several times in the last couple of years, many times actually, where I go, wow, that artist is heavier set than back in the day. You had to be skinny, pretty, and young, and now you can be middle-aged and kind of portly. Doesn't matter. The music speaks for itself, which is, in my personal opinion, that's the way it should be. So anyway, unless you want an authentic British singer. Yeah, I've seen your comments in there, Scott. I don't have an answer for you that because I didn't read all of them and I haven't been following the entire conversation. But yeah, you know what? It was probably, I'm guessing, a production music library that wanted authentic. It's like when libraries want vintage music that was actually written and recorded in the 60s, here's the reason that they want that. Is not only for the sound, and there is a quality to it, and I got to wrap things up because we're 4 minutes over, but there is a quality to the recording, the writing style, the production, all that stuff of vintage music from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So the same thing could be said when these libraries go to the music supervisors. It's a marketing tool for them to say, and every track you're going to hear in that playlist I just sent you was actually recorded in the 60s. They also want to make that claim when they send somebody's doing, let's say, a British spy TV show from the 60s, and they need music that was authentically from the 60s and authentically British with British singers. They need to be able to represent that and have it not be a lie. So that's probably what is at hand, the issue at hand. So there you go. Yeah, look at John Popper. And you know what? He was almost like a branding thing. You know what I mean? Try and remember what anybody else in that band looked like, and you won't. You'll only remember John Popper in his vest full of harmonicas in his portly body. Yeah, has anybody seen the Bill and Ted thing? My wife and I almost watched it on Sunday night. Well, glad you guys enjoyed the hang today. Yeah, it could be a grant issue. I know that we've run up against that many times over the years with Canadians, Canadian content rules or laws. Um, Great logic show, loved it. All right, well, I am going to log off. Oh, Darren, are you enjoying Outlander? Where are you? Season 1, 2, or 3? Have you gotten to the wedding night yet? Scott Hansen got a forward on a Halloween instrumental. That's because your vocal was ghoulish, not British. Ooh. Hold on. uh, Outlander season 2. Okay, so you made it past the wedding night. I'm not going to say anything publicly, but for anybody who watches the show, just know season 1, episode 7. For the guys and the girls in the audience, apparently, because my wife enjoyed it as well. Very sexy little wedding night scene. So there you go, you guys. Great hanging out with you. I will be back tomorrow. And don't forget to like us, subscribe if you haven't already smashed that red button that says subscribe on it. What else? Oh, yeah. Please go and make some comments about ideas for tomorrow's show, because I can't talk about logic every day, all right? It would be illogical. And with that, I bid you guys and gals a fond farewell. We'll see you tomorrow for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantine Happy Hour. Bye-bye.